Okay, so I'm going to start again from scratch with this project at 100 Harris Street. As I always do, using the architectural template instead of any special custom templates. I find it's easier using architectural template. But this time I'm going to point out one thing that I would always customise, and this probably is relevant to all of you. So if you use the default line weights, your drawings won't look very good. And you probably have been all using the default line weights up until now and just had very heavy lines in your plans and sections especially. So make sure you're aware that you can customise the line weights, and that is the one thing that I tend to change from that default template. Otherwise, I think everything in that template's pretty good. So maybe I'll give you a handout I've got on line weights later, but I'll quickly open it up so you know what I mean. I'm sure you all know what line weights are, but in Revit, they just have pens. Goes back to the old idea of plotters using pens. It's very old, and there are 16. And those line weights then vary according to your scale, which is architecturally 100% correct. That's how it should be. Your line weights need to change depending on your scale, but until you understand that, it can be quite difficult to adjust them in Revit. So have a think about that. We'll look at how you can adjust them. That's the one major setting that I don't like in that default template. Otherwise, it's all pretty good. And going back to the 6 maps version, that's where I'm going to start, bringing in the satellite image. So I've got the site there. And I suppose we'll just use the snipping tool again to select it. There's nothing too tricky there. And save a copy, and I'll be nice and save a copy, even though you can do, I'm sure you can do this in your sleep. I'll save a copy for you onto the P drive, and we'll call it 100 Harris Street satellite 6 maps. I won't bother with the Google one, you can do that. But it's helpful to have that as well, so you don't have to guess where things are nearby. It's a pretty easy one to work out though, because you've got a casino across the road, and if you are a sad person like me who's been there too much, you'd know the area pretty well. I don't gamble much, but I go to some other things there. So, yeah, no, not anymore. So it's an interesting site, and it's really good to get familiar with the plan and the view from the roof. And now back into Revit. We've obviously saved the file, so I'm going to go to the site, floor plan, and straight away duplicate the view and rename it, and I'll call it site satellite. Go to insert, click image, find the file, click to place it. So again, you'll be doing this in your sleep before long. To scale any image, you just need some sort of visual reference that gives you a distance. Obviously, you've got the scale bar there for that. So I'm going to click scale, and then click on the left-hand side of that scale bar, then the right-hand side, and type in the size it should be, which is 30,000, 30 metres. So I've got that then in the, it's the right size. So I'm going to then drag the image so it's centred within my views. And this is a really important thing. It's big. It's a big building. And so even at this stage, we can start to establish the views so that we can see all of the building. So the elevations there are set up for a smaller building. The guys who make the templates have no idea what size you're going to be working at, so you have to adjust those elevations accordingly based on the size of your building. So with that image selected, another thing we can do is change the orientation to match what we need. So, well, I'll check. What orientation, if you're doing this project especially, what orientation do you think you'd want for your plans when you print them out? Yeah, good idea. That's what I'd be doing too. So, yeah, so that way north is going to be going off to the side, but that's okay. Yeah, so Harris Street at the bottom, if that's where your entry is, that might be good. Could also be at the top, but that's up to you. So, yeah, having it landscape though is probably the best, especially if you're going to have landscape boards. Oh yeah, I'm going to do the PDFs next. Yeah, that's okay. Yep. Yeah, so it's fine. So you can do this afterwards, even if you've started doing buildings. Yep. So, okay, so you do want to think about the orientation from the outset with Revit. It's just the way Revit works. So, if you're working with landscape boards, you would put the building landscape, but then if you were doing portrait boards, you may have the plans oriented differently. So you just want to think about that. Click rotate with the image selected, and then drag the base point maybe onto the side of the building, or I might use, oh no, I'm not going to trust that red line. No, I'll use the building. So I'll try and find a corner here that I can see. So I'm going to plonk my base point there, and then zoom right out and choose the other corner of the building. So that's my base angle. And then I'll bring it around so that it snaps to horizontal. And you can have a few goes at it if you need to. But you're really just trying to make sure that the building is straight. In other words, it's parallel to the sides of your page when you go to print it out. And that's called Project North, the setting. And that is actually a setting in Revit. You can see here in the view, it's got that option to set it to Project North. And again, it's an important thing. You can change it later. If you go to here, you'll see there is an option to rotate Project North. Trust me, it doesn't work very well. If you try to do it at the end, you'll have problems. It is, yeah. It is. Sorry? Oh, is it? Okay, right. So what's that one then? Oh, is it? Okay, good. Yep. Okay, I should know that. Okay, so okay, we'll select it, and no problem. Just rotate and flip it around 180 degrees. Okay, so that's going to be our orientation. Thanks. And so I'm going to then recenter it. So again, just selecting it, I'm just going to drag the whole image so that it's roughly got the building centered on that blue survey mark. That's our center point, our 0, 0. And then I might pin it. So it's still selected. I can click the pin icon up here, so that locks it in position. And I'm going to then draw some reference planes over the outside of those walls. Probably have to adjust these once I get the PDFs, but it's still good to have these now. And we'll put grids in as well later. You'll see in a minute why I'm doing this. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, everyone should remember hopefully. So, okay, so now if I go back to say the ground floor plan, I can see those reference planes, and I can easily bring those elevations out. And notice I'm selecting them with a window to get both of the parts of those elevations, and just moving them outside of the reference planes. There's nothing worse than being halfway through a project and realising your elevations are buried inside your building and are just going to look like sections. So I'm also just going to bring the section out, and that'll be ready to go when I start doing the building. Alright, so there we are. And so back to the site satellite. What I didn't show you last week is that you can even set true north at this point. So I don't think I'll go through the steps, but make sure you realise that you can still work out true north without reinserting the image, because the side of that page is true north. So what I will do is just draw a reference plane tracing over that, and I'll move it a bit closer to the building So you know, I'm sure, how important true north is. So you know your solar orientation. Okay, so now in any other view, I've got that little marker to remind me where north is. Oh, so I just traced off the side of the satellite, and yeah, it comes up in.
So you just make a reference point for it rather than set it up as the true north as the other variable?
Yeah, I haven't set true north yet. No, I've just brought it up to find the market. Yeah. So, so I could set true north now if I go to the true north view. No big deal, we'll do it. So, okay, it's under manage. It's an easy thing. Position, rotate true north. Drag the base point onto the bottom of your line or your north arrow or your reference plane. Snap to the other end of it and bring that around to vertical. So this view is going to change orientation, but then the satellite one won't. We don't want that to change.
See, it's important that can be more confusing than it feels.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I do that early just to make sure it's working.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So I'm just going to do a couple of the PDFs, or maybe just one of them even. So this is all great stuff from SJB. So you're really lucky if you're doing this one and you've got all those great resources. SJB, I know, so I know some people who work there, I know they use Revit. So these are all Revit drawings. So when you bring them into Revit, you're going to be able to work straight off it. And yeah, I mean, we won't get this Revit files, but it'll all be scaled. It'll scale well, and all the symbols are familiar and everything. Yeah. There's a good chance it'll even come in the right size, but we don't need to rely on that. We'll scale. They work the right size. Oh, you never know. I mean, yeah, we'll see. Okay, so we've got the ground floor plan. You're going to have to help me with this one because I'm not sure how this relates to the outside walls. Yeah, so maybe I won't start with that one. We'll start with one that's showing. Yeah, good idea. Yep. Okay, so I had that. Oh, I've gone to a different folder. So 2018 digital environments. There we are, Harris Street, and level 3. So you need to make sure you use Acrobat Pro, not Acrobat Reader. When you choose Edit, that opens Acrobat Pro. And now, honestly, well, I'll tell you the way I would do this. If it was a PDF from a firm like this, where I know they use Revit, I'd be trying to make this into a DWG file, maybe, to get vectors. But it's going to take me too long to show you that, and it's probably not worth it if you're not really familiar with AutoCAD anyway. So if you are very familiar with AutoCAD, that's something you could try. But again, if you're not, because it'll be vector, you don't get, you don't have to work with a JPEG. Yeah. So yeah, but look, JPEG's okay. So here I've got the PDF file again, and I'm going to just then export to JPEG, because Revit still can't work with PDF files, unfortunately. They're talking about it, but they've got the license, apparently. So going to here, again, I'm just going to save a folder, save a file in here. 100 Harris Street in front. And so, as I always do, I'm going to duplicate the floor plan that I want to use, but I don't have enough levels as yet. So into the south elevation, I'm going to have a look at the levels I do have. Let's think about the setup that I want. Extending the levels out to cross over these reference planes is helpful because then the levels are at least as big as the building we're trying to make. Now, do any of you know what height the building is in AHD? Oh, yeah, and do you know the? Oh, here we go. We've got the levels. So FL, perfect. It's low. That's nice. So 7.9, and I'm sure this will be AHD. So that's good. Oh, well, maybe not, but well, because that's the lowest level. Yeah. So if they've got that, you'd think it's AHD, and they're an architecture firm, so they do it. We'll say it is, even if it's not. So, okay, so 7.9, that's good. If you've got buildings that are closer to 0, then you don't have to think too much about the way you're going to work with levels, because you can basically just use absolute levels. Oh, yeah, so you've done it, you're starting from 0. So what you'll probably want to do is lift the whole thing up. 7 metres, 7.9. Yeah, ground. So just move the whole thing up, it's easy. That's no problem. Just move the whole thing up using the levels. Yeah, I'll go with it. Yep, I'll go through it. So, okay, so here we've got ground floor. And that is going to be our lowest level, so I'm actually going to keep these names for once. And I'm just going to select these 2 levels and click move. Click a base point, move in the direction I want, and type 7900. And then notice that the reference planes, unfortunately, hates about Revit, they don't go automatically, so you've got to go and sketch them up manually. But it's easy when you've only got a few at the beginning. And that's why it's always good to get these overall constraints and the other fundamental measurements in your project set up at the beginning before you've got too much getting in the way. Extend these levels out in your other elevations, check through them all. The section as well, we can even get that to go up. So all that set up you can do before you've made anything real, any physical objects. And so now we've got the, again, just those 2 levels. So I at least want to have level 3. Oh, that's in here. So level 3 is 19,590. So I'm going to make, this is the beauty of Revit, I'm going to make some more levels, but I'm not really that worried about the heights, the exact heights, as long as they're roughly right, except for level 3. Since I know that one, I'll make it 19,590. Level 2, we'll nudge that down in a minute, but I'm not too worried about the exact values. And do you know the number of stories? I'm sure you do. Any of you working on it?
6.
Yes. Yep. So we've got 4, 5, 6 stories. And then the roof. So that should be the minimum number of levels that you have for this building. So that level 7 will become roof. And that's where all those sawtooth roof shapes are going to go. And don't worry, they're actually not that difficult. I've done plenty of those. There's just one simple trick there. So when you get to those, I'll show you that. There we are. So that's a good basic setup. And now I can go back to level 3 and do what I was just talking about, duplicate. And I probably do this more than a lot of other people, but it just helps for managing all of your views if you do that. So never be afraid to duplicate plan views, but think about your setup when you duplicate other views, particularly sections and elevations. So again, we can duplicate plan views as much as we like. I'll duplicate level 3. And then we'll go back into Acrobat Pro. And also I did export already, so forgetting. So again, export the JPEG if you haven't done that already. And now back into our view that is ready there for the import. I'm going to rename it and call it level 3 image, or yeah, that'll do. You're the only one who'll see this name anyway. And then if you go to import, so insert, click image, there's our JPEG plan. Yeah, thought so. Okay, so, well, no, sorry. I thought that would come in the right size. It's close, but actually, no, it's not the right size. So, oh, they've got Harris Street at the bottom. That's fine. So we're doing it the other way around. So we can just rotate that 180. I thought you said Harris Street at the top. Let's go back to the satellite. I'm getting confused. So that's Harris Street. Oh, the casino's at the top, Peermore Street. Okay, sorry, yes, okay, I'm confusing myself. Okay, good. Okay, great. So that's great. We don't have to rotate it. And then we'll get a measurement and use that to scale it. If they've got a visual scale, that'd be nice, but really all we need is a dimension. So I've got my image selected. I'm going to click Scale. Remember, centre of the line, especially for Revit and AutoCAD drawings. So again, to centre, zooming in as far as you can is going to make it as accurate as possible. And then I'll type in that dimension I can see there, 5950. And because this is important, we want to get it right. I'm going to go and check that measurement and make sure it is the size I think it should be. 5949.4, that is absolutely fine. So, okay, so that's spot on. I'm going to then drag it and see if I can use these reference planes to line it up, and then we'll see how far out the satellite image is. So I've snapped it onto the corner there, and as usual, the satellite image is not that reliable, but we expect that. It's perspective, so now I'm going to line it up instead with the PDF. That's much more reliable and accurate. So just nudging this reference plane, well sorry, not even nudging, better if we get a measurement. So if they haven't given an overall measurement, you'd want to sit down and tally up all of these dimensions and then type in that figured dimension. But because I'm in a hurry, I'm going to draw in a dimension and use that. So again, just nudging with the arrows to get it close to where it should be. That's pretty good. Then I can just click on this dimension and type in a measurement. So 77350 sounds good to me, because round numbers always work better, especially with Revit. And then the same going the other way. So, oh God, so it's way off there. What's going on there? Oh, so they must be only giving you part of the building. Yeah, right, okay. Yeah. Oh, but that's the boundary. So we've got a boundary measurement there. Now, oh, and it slopes. Ah, okay, this is good. So Revit doesn't like angles, especially angles that are slightly off orthogonal. You can still do them, and you have to here, because that's a pretty decent angle. Even though I said it's small, it's big enough to worry about. So, yeah, and you've even got this one here, so you can see there it slopes away slightly. So you need to put that in, and there's a bit of a trick. With Revit, you want to have the reference planes there, like I've done them, and keep them horizontal and vertical, so that you can see them in the elevation views. But then you'll need some more following the angles. So I'll use reference planes first to do those angles, and then we'll look at the property line. So here you can see this is what I mean. Revit doesn't like angles. It'll let me draw if I go far enough away. So once I go to there, no problem. But you can see there, once I get just a little bit close, they try to make it too easy, because I think people don't want to deal with these little fine details, but the reality is we have to. So to force it to snap to that angle, one way is to type SN on the keyboard, that's snap to nearest, and that will snap to any point then that I choose. And that's really important, otherwise you're going to end up with everything snapping back to those angles. And here we go. See, it's even telling us it doesn't like these angles, but we need to use it. So the guys at SJB, a lot of them are interior designers. They've obviously done this, so you should as well. But to give you a tip there, if you get a chance, when you're doing your interior walls, like these ones here, keep them straight. Don't try to always follow that angle from the outside wall. And we'll have grids for that too. And so now, coming from the intersection here, over to the right, and we can get the angle down to the boundary there. So again, SN to snap to nearest, and I can again get that reference plane. So this one, with any luck, is vertical. Let's move it across to see. I think it's not surveyors. Oh no, beautiful, that's close enough. I'm going to say that's vertical. And the base, of course, better be vertical. If it isn't, it's close enough. We'll say the bottom's vertical too. I mean horizontal. Yeah, close enough. I don't want to deal with 0.1 of a degree or something. So now I've been a bit silly there. I've just nudged it up a bit. And if you were building this, like SJB would have, obviously, then you would worry about that little angle, because it's going to make a difference of a few hundred mil at one end of the building, and the builders will need to know about that. So then, again, going to select that plan and pin it. And you could, of course, do your grids and other things. So you can line these plans up across the different levels. And so I'm sure a lot of you, who are working on this project have actually done a large part of the building already. But if you haven't done the columns already, it will help you to do the grid first, and then you can place the columns automatically onto your grid. Have you done the columns? Yeah, good. Yeah, oh, good. Yeah, that's the best way. So, yeah, so I'd do the grid on the ground floor, starting from the ground floor level. Make sure it goes all the way through. Maybe I'll do a demo on that afterwards, though. So I'll go to the site view just to draw my property line. And remember, create by distances and bearings doesn't work in Australia. Only create by sketching. I mentioned this to some guys from Autodesk and they didn't believe me. Couldn't believe it. It shows they've never done a real project in their life. And the guy's an architect, general manager. Anyway, so hopefully the Autodesk guys are listening to my YouTube videos and they'll hear this. And I bet you they're not. So here we go. If we go down to the intersection, trace it around, and we'll get a property line that will show up in all the views we want it to, and that's a nice thing to have as well. So again here, it doesn't want to go to the line I've drawn to the left because it wants to keep the angles orthogonal.
Why will it be in everyone?
Oh, because you can show the property line in your floor plan if you want to, yeah. So here again, it tells us it doesn't like the angles, but that's fine. Tick to finish. So if you want to see your property line in a plan view and it isn't coming up, it actually is set to show here already. Go to your visibility graphics settings, and if you scroll down, you'll see then under site, you've got property lines there. So going through all of these, they should show it, and that's an important thing, particularly with a site like this where the wall's basically on the boundary, except for the car park. So I'd also set out the car park using a reference plane. And yeah, we'll say this is vertical, that's pretty close. And the site slope with this one is basically from Harris Street. It goes down by there. It goes down to the casino, doesn't it? Down to Piermont Road. Yeah. So you'll need levels, which you can see here, 19.4 something, and then the ground floor is 7 point something, so this is going to be a really quick, easy one. Back to the site view to start with. Do you know why you generally make topo surfaces in the site floor plan? Exactly, that's it, yep. So, yep, that's right. So if you want to see them, if you go to your floor plans, you can go into, again, visibility graphics, and just turn on, what is it again? So it's not under site, it's, oh, I thought it was site, sorry, that's it. It's on. That's odd. Shouldn't be. Sorry, I'm not thinking, right, it's topography, sorry. But it is on. That's odd. Okay, so there's some different settings in the template, and that's fine. So if I go to topo surface now, and I can use the values from here, so it's almost like you've got a real survey with this project, which is much better than what you'd have normally. So here we can type in 19660, click on that point, and go to the next one. I mean, you're doing interior design, so you don't need to do a perfect topographical model. So unless you're just going to skip all these points and go to the other side, you could, I mean, you should definitely go and fill in all the ones that you have since you've got them. I'm just going to skip it for now. Do another point, and then let's just get one more down here. Oh, there's no levels there. Let's go to the other side. So on the ground floor, in fact, I'll just get it off the one I've got here. So we know it's about 7 metres, but let's see if there's a level out there. Can't see any. But these all seem, here we go, so there's a door. At the bottom of that it's 6.8, so let's say that the floor level outside might be 100 mil or so below that again. So let's just go a bit further below that again, so 6.5. I was going to guess, but you can work that out more accurately. And so I'll make this 6500 and just do a few points on the other side of the building. So I've got a surface. And I might just extend by copying a few points over here as well. Now this is interesting. So notice how there, I can't see the point anymore. So that's not the visibility, that's the view range. So I'm going to go into properties here and change it to my floor plan so that I can change the view range, and I'll bring the top up to 4000. And the bottom I'm going to bring down to minus 500 and the view depth too. Still not getting it. Oh, it's still even lower. Okay, so because this is just a working view, I'm actually going to make the view range base go to unlimited to the bottom and the view depth. Okay, so again back into 3D, and that's a pretty decent slope. If you can see it that obviously, that's a pretty substantial slope. 1 to 100, but I'm just zooming to, yeah. So, but I'll finish this and then go back to the ground floor. And, well, I better get the image, so I'm going to insert the ground floor plan now. Okay, so I'll insert that image and scale it just like before. Yeah.
In the Revit files, how do you get all the walls to show just solid black lines?
Oh, just coarse. Set the view to coarse. That should do it.
But then when you're
And then change the shading. I'll just make a wall. Yeah, so I make a wall here and just use one of the generic walls. So because it's on coarse, it's going to have the solid fill, but it's grey. So to make it black,
is it possible to make it completely black?
yeah. So I'm just going to select the wall and then go to edit type. And then here, just change that coarse fill colour to black. Yes, because you go straight to materials. But yeah, you're skipping the bit where it is. So yeah, just set that to black.
Photoshopping all the fill.
Yeah, don't be ashamed of that. My dad, who came first in the state when he graduated architecture, he's using Revit all the time. He did exactly the same thing for years and years. Yeah, and he was, super clever guy, but he did exactly the same thing. Okay, so again, I'm going to scale this. Same as before. And line it up. Okay, so I'd probably line that up a little bit better later on, take some time with it. But again, really what I want that for is the set out for the grids. So, no, actually, so I should line this up a bit better right now. It's a shame that it's not showing the boundary, because they've done it with the cut lines. Okay, so the scaling must be a bit off in some direction. So maybe I'll just check a measurement over here. So 4:2, yeah, it's off. Okay, so I'll scale that again. Okay, so there are some slight issues then with this space drawing, unless I'm missing something. Still, it looks pretty good on the top. Yeah, that's close enough. Okay, so I'd think about putting the grids in before too long, but the other thing I would look at was the pad. So I'm not sure if you've used pads very much, building pads. So if you've done a topo surface that needs to then be cut away so you can excavate, and that's anyone who's got a sloping site, you need to use a building pad to excavate the ground. So under massing and site, that's where you'll find building pads. They're really easy to use. They're just like floors. So I'm going to go to building pad. I'm on the ground floor level. So I'm going to change the height offset of that to -150. Our ground floor slab will probably be about that thick. So I'm bringing the pad down so that it sits underneath the floor. And to keep it simple, I'm just going to trace. Normally I would use pick lines. But any of you who've tried to do that, you'll see it crashes when you use pick lines in here. So use the line tool instead and just trace. And it doesn't take that long. It's all good practice as well. So again here, make sure you use tab if you've got to change the angle, or use a snap override. And where's my property line? Okay, now this is a good thing for you to see. I can't see the property line very clearly in this view. So I'm going to go to another view where it's easier. And I can do that midstream even while working on this pad. There we are, much clearer. So maybe I will just show you one last shortcut that's probably good for all of you. I've been using SN, which is snap to nearest. But here I would have snapped to the end of the line. Just trying to go straight up, and I want to go to the left a little bit. So I'm going to type SE, which is snap to endpoint. And again, we get that annoying message, but we can ignore it. So that's my topo so my pad that will cut into my topo surface. So I'm going to finish it, go to a 3D view. And there we are. So we've got an excavated site, and you can continue developing that up, but that's a really good starting point to then build the floors, the grids and the walls, and get your columns done. If you've already done those things, though, you can easily come back and add the site afterwards. There's no problem with that. So I'll finish there, and then, unless you've got any questions, but I'm sure you'll be right.
Then when you do the site mapping with all the other buildings around, so would you honestly just base that height higher? Does that allow you?
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be accurate?
Yeah, but look, I will show you one thing there. So we know that the ground slopes up in the same way towards Harris Street, and then it slopes down towards the casino. So I'll just show you a couple of little tricks there to extend it out. So that's the Harris Street end. So if I go to Edit Surface, and I'll go back to the one that has the satellite. Okay, so I've got all those points along that edge. And take your time with it, get those points to the heights you want before you do this. But then roads tend to be flat. They're not actually always flat, but they're pretty flat. So, so I'm going to select all these points and click copy, and just bring a copy of them down to the other side of the road. And then I'm going to go to the west elevation, and we can see those points there. Some of them go up and down a bit, that's okay. And they're still selected. So I'm now going to click copy again, but this time try to follow the slope of the land so that it keeps going up a bit. That's good enough. I'll do the same going the other way, so even in the 3D view. Yeah, so just get a bit more ground to work with. So I've got these points here on the casino side, and again I'm going to copy them to the other side of the road. And then again going to the east or the west elevation, doesn't matter. And then again I can copy them down, trying to follow that general slope. Little tip there, don't slope it too much if you don't want it to look a bit weird. So there I've probably gone a bit too high, but I can go back and just fine tune that using the arrows and get it to look more normal. There you go. Don't worry about these little bits that wrap around the sides. You're going to crop out the whole edge of that anyway. I might even, copy them across a bit more and extend it, and then I'd just cut the whole thing back to tidy it at the end. But more is better than less. Also, too much is better than not enough. So there we are. And so, if you've got enough ground, then you can start putting your topo surfaces in just to put the roads. Not topo surface, sorry, your sub-regions. You cut up your topo surface. Should work pretty well. finish there.